At the moment I'm riding a 2022 Royal Enfield Classic 350 Reborn, and this is how the instrument console on this model came to Australia without the Tripper navigation. There's obviously a place for it, so I decided to solve the missing sat-nav issue and at the same time get myself a nice little workshop ornament. At this point I should give a thankful shout out to all our Indian brothers who've posted a lot of videos on how to do the job, and I consulted quite a few of these to see what was involved, and there are a number of ways you can do it depending on how lazy you feel and on how difficult you want to make it for yourself. All up, it took me about 2 hours to do the job. The job wasn't all that difficult really, it was just really quite fiddly. So the first thing to do is to remove the headlight screws and disconnect the lens. You've got one screw on each side, and then you need to locate the nut that secures the instrument cluster to the cowl and remove that. And you need to be careful when you're getting to that nut from inside the headlight that the washers don't want to fall into the depths of the headlight wiring. I know about that. So then we lift the gauge out, and then we can disconnect the instrument wiring connector. You pull down on the red lock thingy, and then the connector comes away closer up to the gauge itself than down near the red lock. At this point the cowl needs to be lifted away from the stanchions to access the screw that's holding the Royal Enfield Classic badge, and to do this we undo the two large Allen screws, one on each stanchion. Now they're really tight and you're going to need some leverage to get them to crack and to move. And also there is a conveniently hidden 10mm screw behind the Royal Enfield logo plate, or for some of our Indian friends behind the front number plate. Before the cowl can be lifted, the wiring needs to be stuffed back inside the shell. It's protruding and you can't get that cowl to go up unless you get that in. It's a bit of a hassle, but you just push it in. The way that I'm doing it is that you only need to lift the cowl as far as you can to be able to get your hands in, and you do need to stop before it hits the brake lever. Remove the screw in the bracket holding the badge and locate the wiring connector for the sat-nav. It has a yellow part at the connector and a cap. Mine was zip tied to the large wiring bundle cover, so cut the cable tie if you need to and route the connector up to the sat-nav unit and fit the connector to the sat-nav. At this point, if you connect the instrument cluster wiring, you can turn the ignition on to see if you've done everything correctly. It's a pretty simple affair, but you just want to make sure it's working before it all goes back together. Connect the sat-nav to the cowl using the bracket that came with it, and make sure that the leg of the bracket is fitted correctly into the locating hole under the cowl. My gauge came without a nut and washer. If yours comes like this, look, it's not a real problem. You just need a 6mm flat washer and a 6mm lock nut. But before you start the job, make sure that you check to see if the nut and washer came with your unit. Holding the bracket in place while fitting the washer and nut, while keeping the rubber seal in place, is a bit of a trick. However, if you put some thick grease on the washer, it should stick to the underside of the bracket long enough for you to be able to start threading the nut. Tighten the nut and all is good. Fit the instrument cluster with the wiring connected snugly under the rubber seal and secure with the original bracket and 10mm lock nut. Lower the cowl and snug it onto the rubber stanchion seals and tighten down the large Allen screws. Refit the headlight and tighten the screws, and don't forget to refit the 10mm screw located just below the headlight. Next, you need to set up your sat-nav to your phone by downloading the Royal Enfield app and following the directions, and it should appear to your phone. And before you ride off, just make sure you've tightened everything down correctly and punch in a destination into your new sat-nav, and away you go. Thanks for watching the video. I hope it's been helpful, and if you think I've missed anything, just drop a line down below and I'll get back to you and see if I can help. So if you have found it useful, maybe you could give a thumbs up and maybe even subscribe down below. That'd be great. So until next time, go well.